Hi Bookends, welcome to a 10-min check-in. I'm 10. So this check-in is going to be a wrap-up for our PoCathon. It's not our PoCathon. This is just our TBR for the PoCathon. So just jumping right on in. The first challenge was read books featuring a main character that represents 3 different races or ethnicities. So for that we chose The Disasters by M.K. England. I'll leave a link to the full review for it, but just a really quick review. Basically, Nax wants to be a pilot, a space pilot, but he's kicked out of his school along with a couple of other kids. They're not really kicked out, they just don't make the cut. And there ends up being this kind of like terrorist plot by these people who believe everyone should live on Earth and not in outer space. And Nax is bi, but the cool thing is his sexuality has absolutely nothing to do with his personality. Like, I hate when I read a book where the person's sexuality is the main drag of the entire book, and it's like, no, like, your sexuality is not the main drag of your life. It's just who it is you're going to have sex with, and possibly who it is you're going to spend the rest of your life with, possibly. But it's not the main drag of your entire life, your personality. And it had absolutely nothing to do with his personality. I actually like how the author introduced it, because he kind of had a crush on one of the guy characters, but only mentioned it kind of in his brain. And then he also had a crush on one of the girl characters and kind of mentioned that in his brain. He doesn't have the time to stop and say, hey, let's sleep together, because they don't have the time. So I loved how the author did that. Second book. Read a book featuring an intersectional POC character. For example, a POC who is queer, neurodivergent, or has mental health disorder or disability. For that, we chose Born by Jeff Vandermeer. So Born stars Rachel, who is bipolar, manic bipolar, and she also appears to be schizophrenic. She is the best scavenger in town, and she's also in a relationship with a slightly older guy who does drugs and also kind of sells drugs, but their version of drugs is like sticking a worm in your ear that gives some kind of a hallucinogenic effect that can give you memories from a time before life was as crappy as it is now. And she finds this creature attached to the back of a huge bear. Follow me. So yeah, huge bear about the size of an Empire State Building called Mort. And she finds this creature that she doesn't even know is sentient, names it Born, finds out Born is sentient, raises Born. Born gets a personality, becomes kind of a superhero and also kind of a super villain. But in the end, it was a testament to women. I'm going to say women, but it could be anyone. It was a testament to women who struggle not only with their own issues mentally and emotionally, but try to do the best that they can for the children that they have. Like, Rachel knew that something was up with her. She was in no way under a delusion of otherwise. But she did the best she could to raise Born to be the best person that he could be. And in the end, how she raised him helped to form his opinions on what it is he needed to do. And in the end, he died a hero. So that was beautiful. It doesn't really end there. I love how Jeff Vandermeer actually ended the book. So yeah. It was kind of a love letter, in my opinion. It was a love letter to mothers who have to battle with mental illness while still making sure that this little person that they've brought into the world is okay. Which a lot of mothers have to do without medication, because of course some women are able to get medication, but if you live in certain areas, you don't have health insurance, people don't take you seriously, what have you, there is no medication available. And this is like a post-apocalyptic world, so she didn't have any medication, so she was really doing the best that she could with what it is she had. It was a really good book. I highly recommend it. Next book is read a poetry collection or a non-fiction book. For that, we chose Feelings, A World of Pain by Sahil Sokin. So this was a poetry book that we received at Comic-Con hasn't come up yet. We received at Book Expo, and it's a book of poetry. Now, I don't know a lot about how to review poetry, so I'm just gonna go by how it made me feel and what I thought about it. The poems are short, they're concise, they're straight to the point, which I guess is concise, but they don't leave the reader feeling like they have to go get a dictionary to understand how it is the author is feeling. And because of that, it makes it easier to identify with the emotions that the author goes through, because there's no barrier of having to figure out what does he mean by this hypothetical such and such. He's pretty straightforward. And so I enjoyed it. Next one. I'm sorry guys, I'm trying to get through this quick because it's a couple of books. Read a book written by an author from a... Oh, you know, I missed one. I'm sorry. Read a translated book, or if you're multilingual, read a book that is not in your native tongue. So the translated book that we read... I'm sorry, I'm looking at the screen. Make sure I have time. So the translated book that we read was Plum Blossoms in a Golden Vase. So this is a Chinese drama that was considered an erotica, but is not erotic. I don't want to scare people away who don't like erotic things. This is in no way, shape, or form an erotica. There is nothing erotic in this book. It's basically just mentioning actions that people are taking, and they're not even mentioning it in depth. They will say so-and-so laid down with such and such. It doesn't say what they were doing while they were laying down, but it lets you know that the two of them laid down. So basically it's the story of these two brothers who are kind of like dynamic opposites, but they're still good. A short, stubby one who's kind of feminine, but, you know, living his life the best he can. And a taller, masculine one who's kind of like a warrior, also living the best they can. Now, both the brothers are kind of dumb. I know before I said that one of them was kind of dumb, the other one wasn't, but they're both kind of sort of simple-brained. But the older brother, who is shorter, the shorter one who's stumpy, his wife dies, and so a guy's like, okay, well, you can have my servant as your new wife. His servant who brother man's still sleeping with. So he's like, here, you can take her because my wife doesn't want her in the house, but I'm still gonna sneak into your house and do what I want with her. Rich people, right? So he's okay with it because he just needs a wife, period, just to be able to do stuff around the house. I guess men couldn't do stuff for themselves back then. I don't know. I don't get it. But his little brother, who's bigger and stronger and kind of a warrior, he goes to this village, and on the way there, he kills this tiger who has been killing people from the village, like hunting people. And because he kills the tiger, they give him this big prize. And he says, you know, well, I don't deserve this huge prize all to myself. You should give it to some of the hunters who were here, who were trying to kill it, and lost friends who, you know, tried to kill it as well and failed and unfortunately were eaten. So this endears him to the people, and he gets a job there as, I think, a sheriff's assistant, something like that. When the short stubby brother's wife sees him, she starts plotting on how it is she can have sex with him. And like, she's plotting. And he kind of figures it out. The younger brother, who's taller, he kind of figures out what she's trying to do. I mean, it's a drama. I heard that there is another version of this that has action. It's not the same version, but it's a continuation, I guess. has a lot of fighting in it, which I'm not into. I'm not into fighting. I'm sorry for all the music that you hear. It is Memorial Day weekend, not Memorial Day, Labor Day. I'm sorry, Labor Day weekend in the hood. And I don't know how it is in other places, but we gonna be hearing music until like 2:30 in the morning. So, yeah, cookouts on the sidewalk and everything. Anyway, next book. It was okay. It wasn't my favorite book to read, in all honesty, not because, you know, I was looking for something erotic, because I definitely wasn't looking for anything erotic. I was just looking for something that was translated. But it wasn't my favorite book to read just because I didn't particularly care for the writing style. Nothing against the author, who's been dead, you know, thousands of years. I just didn't care for the writing style of it. So, not my favorite read. And what's our next one? Okay. Read a book written by an author from a different continent. For that, we chose Tell It to the World by Stan Grant. Stan Grant is a reporter for ABC Asia, and he also worked for CNN. And he is an Aborigine from Australia. So we're gonna leave a link to the review that we did in regards to his book. It was actually really, really good. I had no idea that Aboriginal people considered themselves black too. Something that I mentioned in the review video for his book is that one of the main weapons used against the African American black is the illusion of separation, or the illusion of seclusion. Like, you are the only ones who exist like you, and you only exist because we put you here. You are all alone. Nobody likes you. But to understand that there are people continents away who are like, no, we're black too, and we identify with your struggle, and we identify with the civil rights movement, and we're still going through stuff. Of course, we're still going through stuff over here too. But it was interesting to feel not so alone, because this guy Stan Grant is like, I think he's a little bit younger, quite a bit, yeah, a little bit younger than my dad. So to think that the same troubles that my dad was going through being a young black man over here who didn't have certain rights, who was still being affected by Jim Crow, who was still sitting in the back of the bus and drinking his Coke outside, you know, and not being able to eat in the diner. My dad, who was going through all this over here, this man was going through all this over there. But because we're not taught in school that you're not alone, I had no idea that there were so many other black people all around the world who considered themselves black, who were okay with being counted in among us. And I know what color Aboriginal people are. You know, I know what shading they come in, but I just never thought that they counted themselves a part of the black community. Just didn't know. So it was a really good read. It was really eye-opening, and you got to find out not only the different horrible things that have happened to the Aboriginal people, but also the different things that they have done to overcome it and what they are continuing to do in regards to their civil rights. Okay, and last book is read a graphic novel or comic or manga or comic volume by a POC writer, artist, or colorist. For that, we read Monstrous by Marjorie Liu. Beautiful artwork, wonderful artwork. You would get blown away by the artwork. I wish this person could like illustrate my life. Beautiful artwork. The storyboard, I had no idea what was going on. It felt like I was reading Sucker Punch in the form of a graphic novel. There was so much going on and yet so little explanation. Like it literally just went from page to page, and it felt like you were going through a whole different story or a different part in the same story, and you're like, wait, I just turned from page 1 to 2. How did I get here? Yeah, so it was not a favorite read. If you're into pretty books, it's pretty. It was not my favorite read. Ended up not keeping it. The whole nun witch thing was just crazy. It wasn't it wasn't for us. So we ended up just getting rid of it. It wasn't for us. So that was our TBR for PoCathon. Thank you so much for watching, and we hope to do more readathons in the future. And yeah, we're gonna be doing another one in September that actually just started today. Oh my god. Okay, a lot of work to do. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.